Over the next 12 months, the Hunter will benefit from a total infrastructure spend of $227 million. Key items include the new Maitland Hospital, road projects and the construction of light rail in Newcastle. Interestingly, while more than $100 million will go towards building the light rail, we still haven't seen any firm plans or a time frame, something Hunter Labor MPs were more than happy to comment on today. The state says it's an infrastructure budget, but Hunter Labor MPs say otherwise. The biggest chunk of funding locally is for a project they fought against during the March election, with $103 million to be spent on introducing light rail.
That's $100 million we could really better use. Where there are no plans in terms of the interchange yet, we don't know where it's going to start, whether it'll start on Wickham or the other side. Newcastle deserves better.
But the Liberals say it's a big ticket game changer.
We promised it, we're delivering it. We've got 4 years and this is a very good start.
$50 million will be spent on Hunter roads, including $4 million for the Newcastle inner city bypass and $3 million for the extension of the M1 Pacific motorway. But the most money, $19.5 million, will continue construction of the New England Highway overpass at Maitland, a project Jenny Atchison maintains should already be complete.
The government's on a go slow in infrastructure in Maitland and has been for the last 5 years.
Roads can take a period of time to deliver. Every project now, infrastructure takes time, but the important thing is to get it right.
$1 million will go to the Singleton and Muswellbrook bypasses, and there's $2 million for the Scone bypass, both priorities for the Hunter's only Baird government MP, Michael Johnson.
As the cash comes in, then those commitments will progress even further.
But there's nothing for the Glendale interchange, a project that's been a priority in the area for 10 years.
We need about another $35 million to finish the roadworks. To build the Pennant Street Bridge, we need about another $35 million.
In health, the biggest item is $9.9 million for planning and site preparation for the long-awaited new Maitland Hospital.
We want to see movement. I just want to see it at faster than a snail's pace. We want them to come up with the goods, to start digging in the dirt.
There's also money for the John Hunter Children's Hospital and Stage 2 of the Muswellbrook Hospital redevelopment. Other projects that will benefit from funding include the Newcastle Justice Precinct, the University of Newcastle's new space project, Rutherford High School and new fire stations at Maryland and Lambton. Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
His case has been dismissed, which is great news for that young fella because it's been a big weight on his shoulders for a while.
Amalgamation is not in the best interest of the people of Lake Macquarie. It clearly says that Lake Macquarie is a large, efficient, sustainable council.
This sanctuary offers animals a safe haven while they recover from ill treatment or neglect. Sadly, many have also been brought in as a result of an owner's misconception.
The way they need to be fed is very different to that of a horse. Their farrier work needs to be approached a lot differently. Medications.
But now there's another issue that has the centre speaking out. Well, this is the organisation's main property. At the moment it homes around 70 donkeys, but the recent storms in April has thrown the operation into turmoil.
There's about $100,000 worth of damage to this property here, which relates to hay, fixtures and fittings, the road here and also the fences. The water came through the hay shed and you can see it's washed down against all the bottom layer of the hay, which means it's now unsuitable for use as feed.
The organisation is now seeking financial help from the public, but in the meantime, the effort to keep these often misunderstood animals continues.
There is no such thing as a stupid donkey, only stupid people.
Michael Kane, NBN News. There was an air of relief at Newcastle Airport today after an incident that grounded a flight carrying 149 passengers.
It doesn't happen all that often, but it has happened in the past due to other diversions.
It started late yesterday afternoon when crew on board Sydney-bound JQ413 started smelling smoke an hour into the trip from Coolangatta. An emergency was declared and the decision was made to divert to Williamtown.
The aircraft landed safely and parked on bay, and the passengers disembarked normally through the front stairs.
Engineers inspected the aircraft and determined the smell wasn't the result of mechanical failure. Jetstar now believes it was more than likely caused by someone smoking a cigarette in a toilet, saying we haven't been able to identify any specific passenger in this instance. In our experience, incidents of customers smoking on board are extremely rare. Airport officials have praised the swift response on the ground.
The military are the first response in this kind of incident, and as always they responded quickly and acted appropriately.
Passengers were transported to Sydney by bus and the aircraft returned to service this morning. Michael Kane, NBN News.
The Knights will take on the Broncos without their number one prop. Cade Snowden's shot on Matt Pryor deemed too risky to challenge.
It's a grade one, and he's definitely made some contact with the head with his shoulder. So trying to get a downgrade on that might be harder.
Tarek Sims escaped a ban for this hit, but David Farlongo's hamstring is still a cause for concern.
No, I think Dave's probably another week. He's moving okay. He hasn't had really any volume or intensity. Today was the first time he'd done that, and coming back from a hammy, ideally you'd like to think we could put 2 weeks worth of work into him before they play.
Chris Houston broke his finger on the weekend and won't be available until round 20.
How's going to be out for a while? He's broke his little finger pretty badly. He's getting surgery this afternoon. So that's a couple of weeks for Chris.
Jared Mullen is on track to make a comeback from a nagging toe problem. He trained strongly today and could partner Tyrone Roberts in the halves.
Probably changed a few things around with his footwear and his orthotics a bit, but we've been working to get some sort of conclusion there, and he looks like he's running around pain-free, which is good.
It's hoped Jeremy Smith's return from a sternum injury will strengthen the Knights' diminished forward pack. Rick Stone is prepared to give some less experienced players a chance up front.
Gives our younger players a bit of a chance, and three blokes definitely in contention. Joseph Tapani, probably Pat Vaivai and Sam Mataora.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
He's only been in town a few days, but Andy Brennan is already getting comfortable in his new surroundings.
With weather like this, you can't really say anything bad about it. And compared to Tassie, it's pretty warm.
The 22-year-old took part in his first training session with the Jets yesterday. Before that, he completed a massive road trip to Newcastle with his mum.
I had the first leg from Hobart to Devonport, which is about a 3-hour leg, then the Spirit of Tasmania, which is a bumpy ride, and then arriving in Melbourne, then drove up, stayed overnight at Barrel, and then took the rest of the journey here. So it started on Thursday and got here on Saturday. It was a bit of a long drive, but we got here and I'm here now, so I'm happy.
Brennan made a name for himself with standout performances for South Hobart before he continued to impress with South Melbourne in the Victorian Premier League. where he caught the eye of Phil Stubbins. With Stubbins gone, replaced by head coach Scott Miller and assistant John Paul Demarani, is the Tasmanian worried about his prospects?
It hasn't changed much for me. If I've got to perform every week, so if I can do that, I'm sure I'll impress.
Despite being compared to Socceroo star Matthew Leckie, Brennan isn't getting carried away about his move to the professional ranks.
I'd never try to put myself too highly or trying to think too highly about where I want to be or where I want to go. I've always just gone and trained as hard as I can and worked as hard as I can and kind of hoped that I'd get somewhere.
Aquatic reserves at Port Stephens offer an abundance of sea life, including this amazing underwater world at Fly Point. Head offshore and a little further south though, and it's a different story. Recreational anglers say an artificial reef off Newcastle or Lake Macquarie is the answer to restoring habitats and luring fish.
A lot of plant life and other things attach themselves to that, which fish feed off. And so then it gives a reason for fish to come and stay in an area. It also gives some protection to the fish as well.
A fifth steel artificial reef standing 12 metres high will soon be submerged somewhere off the state's coast. Worth $1 million, it'll be paid for using revenue from recreational fishing licences. From today, anglers can lobby the state government online to ensure this one doesn't get away. Lake Macquarie was promised an offshore artificial reef 5 years ago, but local anglers were left gutted when instead it went to Port Macquarie. Now they say it's finally their time to get some bang for their buck.
Well, we're the second largest city in the state, and we have had a lot of habitat lost over the years through destructive commercial practices, and it'd be fantastic to be able to put something back in its place.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. In the Treasurer's own words, it's an unprecedented era of investment in infrastructure and services, but documents delivered to the member for Swansea show nothing will go to transporting the electorate from the state budget.
Essentially, Swansea has received nothing for the last 4 years of this government, so I wasn't too surprised with the outcome.
There was funding for ongoing maintenance of the Swansea Bridge and other roads. The Labor MP argues when you look at the big picture, it's not good enough. In particular, Ms Catley wanted funding for Carter's Road at Lake Munmora. It now has 4 schools along it and needs an upgrade to handle the increase in traffic.
But what I am very concerned about is that now that the government has sold the silver, what's left? How are we going to afford those big ticket infrastructure items of the future?
But Treasury says that zero figure for Swansea wouldn't include transport projects covering multiple electorates. And the Parliamentary Secretary for the Hunter also maintains Swansea wasn't forgotten, citing an $8 million spend on other road projects.
Mike Baird was very, very determined that whatever we committed to in the election campaign, we will deliver, irrespective of who won what seats.
Vivian von Drainen, NBN News.
Crews have just been in fully encapsulated suits and taken readings. Temperature readings are in the normal range, and so we're just monitoring the situation at the moment.
We've asked again today to try and find out what the future is going to be for us so we can go looking for elsewhere work, but they still can't come back with an answer.
An event many thought was worth waiting for. Shoppers jammed in tight ahead of the opening of Aldi's newest Hunter store. As the roller door rose, crowds rushed in, intent on grabbing a bargain. The opening not just exciting supermarket customers, but marking a milestone for developer Stockland.
It signals the completion of our $10 million redevelopment of Stockland Jetson.
Eat Street, the centre's revamped $4.5 million outdoor dining area, opened back in March, with hundreds of shoppers invited to a free long lunch. Stockland has also unveiled plans to spend $60 million on its Glendale centre and believes its investment at Jesmond has created an improved retail experience.
Aldi is a great addition to the centre, complements Woolworths, Big W, the East Street redevelopment. We're just so happy to have them open today.
Madeline McKell, NBN News.
They're the female members of the Thin Blue Line, going strong a century on.
It's been great to be able to celebrate, all the girls to celebrate 100 years of women in policing and all the changes that have taken place over the years.
Today saw the Lake Macquarie leg of a statewide baton relay by officers commemorating the occasion. There are now more than 8,000 female officers across the state, which is around a quarter of all police. And at Lake Macquarie, the numbers are even better.
We're looking at nearly 30% of our staff, sworn and unsworn, being our civilian staff,
women.
For many, it was a day of acknowledging a career that has provided so much.
Just wanted to be in a job that gives you lots of diversity and that there's lots of areas to move around within the police, and I've experienced that in the police. That's been the best part of it.
Policing has changed for a lot of women since the first female officers joined in 1915, and today was also a chance to remember those who paved the way for generations to come.
I don't know how they did it. Like, it's credit to them for, starting off in the police back then. Definitely a different world.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
In June last year, they went to contract for 2 HMAS supply ships. They were both being built overseas. If that work was built here in the region, it would have guaranteed these jobs.
His name has been shopped around at several clubs, but talk Trent Hodkinson could become a Knight is getting louder. His teammates are well aware of what they could be losing.
Looks like he's going to Newcastle, big blow for the club.
Yeah, it's a massive blow. Trent's been playing great football. He's not on the Origin side for nothing.
If he does move, he's been a big part of our success over the last few years.
The Knights won't confirm or deny the rumours, but Matt Gidley scoffed at suggestions a deal had already been done.
Negotiations with certain players are already underway.
That's right. So, as I said, we've got a pretty structured approach as to who we're going to enter negotiations with.
Is Trent someone that's potentially on the radar?
Well, Trent's obviously a quality player, and he's on the market at the moment. So, I probably don't think it's appropriate to go in and talk about the detail and look to jeopardise any negotiations that we may or may not enter into.
Clubs still within the cap also have the ability to sign a player before June 30. While the prospect is tempting, it's unlikely.
Every day there's quality players coming on the market. So we're considering all options at the moment. As I said, we are well positioned to make a play for the right type of player that we feel can come in and improve our team and strengthen our squad in the long term rather than the short term.
Paddy Kilmurray, NBN News.
You can see with the past events with the club, it's starting to turn around now with the new squad. We haven't really got many players at the moment, but you're going to see a lot more coming in.
It's a regular stop for the National Motocross Series, but organisers have had to put in extra hours to get Barley Ranch up to scratch this year.
It's been a big clean-up effort. We're back on track now. All the trees that fell down, we've had to pick them back up and put everything back in place, but we're ready to go.
They've also made some modifications.
We've done a few improvements for this National, done a few that are new for today. During next week, in preparation for the event, we'll do a few more changes just to keep the riders on their toes.
Luke Clout from Western Sydney was just one of the riders getting a look at the track today. He currently leads the National 250 class with 5 rounds left to run. The 20-year-old likes his chances on July 5, despite recovering from thumb surgery.
I'm confident with me and my team and my bike. I think, now that I'm back to 100% healthy, I don't think, I can't be stopped from winning. I think I'm going to, go out there and show everyone what I'm capable of.
Luke Stike from Jervis Bay also made the trip up for the practice session. He's sitting second in the 450 class and has a solid record here in the Hunter.
I won in 2013 on a little bike on the 250, so that was good. So I know how to win here, and hopefully we can do the same in a week.
The Newcastle Jets' third and final forum is currently underway at Newcastle Panthers. Paddy Kilmurray is there and he joins us live. Paddy, what's the aim of tonight's meeting?
Well, Mitch, as you mentioned, this is the third and final forum. The first was open to business leaders, the second to Jets members, and tonight it's open to the general public. Unfortunately, the crowd is a little bit small, but they'll get a chance to voice their concerns to a panel of four, consisting of the A-League's Damien DeBowen, David Lowe, who's a former Socceroo, Northern New South Wales Football's David Eland, and of course, Newcastle Jets defender Nigel Bogard. I caught up with David Lowe a short time ago. Here's a bit of what he had to say. David, what are you expecting this evening?
Well, it's a little bit of a mystery. I think there'll be a few people that were here last week. I think we're going to try and give everybody a little bit more chance, you know, to see what they want in terms of engagement, what they really think that concept is. Look, hopefully a good atmosphere. It was a good atmosphere last week, everybody positive. Yeah, I think everybody wants the club to do well, and I'm expecting the audience to be that way and ask all the questions they need to ask.
Tonight, people are genuinely interested. Mitch, as I said, the forum is currently underway behind me now. And as you're aware, it's been a very difficult period for the Jets recently. Tonight is all about getting the club back on track. Expect some good news in the coming days. The Jets are set to announce a new sponsor. We'll have all those details, hopefully, in tomorrow night's news. Mitch?
There's not much these rallying retailers like about the Maitland Mall revamp. They wanted council to open it to traffic, create more car parking and lighting, but that's not what the Maitland City Action Group says is being delivered.
We've got lighting that looks like it came out of Stalag 13, Hogan's Heroes show. We've got a kiosk that should be on a beach in Bali, and they've got $10 million of state funding to build themselves. We don't know what it looks like, but they're calling it a Riverlink, but it's also going to be a council-owned restaurant.
The cobbled surface is another issue.
I can't even get through on my wheelchair on this stuff here.
Not on hand to meet protesters, Mayor Peter Blackmore bore the brunt of their anger after being quoted in a local newspaper calling retailers whingers.
50% loss in trade is not whinging. 80% loss in foot traffic is not whinging.
But the mayor says he wasn't invited and...
So you never actually called them whingers, you were misquoted?
I was misquoted, but however, it appeared in the print. I'm prepared to wear that.
The levee's completion has been delayed by April's cyclonic storm. Peter Blackmore wants retailers to see the multi-million-dollar upgrade as a positive investment in the city. Ultimately, the Action Group wants council to remove its newly built building and to finally finish this stage of the levee project. For its part, council says that a completion date has now been set for the end of August, but that its kiosk isn't going anywhere. Madeleine McKell, NBN News.
In many ways, it's a suburb on the move, but Bullaroo is still struggling to shake off its industrial past. For the first time since 2006, Hunter New England Health is seeking a snapshot of children's health at Bullaroo, Argenton and Spears Point. It's set to conduct free blood lead tests on those aged 6 months to 5 years and pregnant women.
With the smelter closure, blood leads dropped dramatically and we stopped the screening at that point. But more recently there's been more concern raised about residual lead in the soil, so it's a good time just to go back and check and see if the blood leads have decreased as we'd hoped or if there is still an ongoing concern there.
Last time, the service found 7% of children tested had levels above 10 micrograms per decilitre, down from 40% in the Pasminco years. The Bullaroo Action Group has welcomed the testing program, but wants more done.
We are concerned about the children, right, in our local areas, but we don't want the children here to be the canaries of Argenton, Bullaroo, Spears Point as far as lead's concerned.
These tests will help, but if the place is remediated, it will help the children more.
The Health Service demonstrated the testing process today, far less invasive than previous ones.
It's a very small finger prick. A small drop of blood gets put into the machine and 3 minutes later the result's available for the parents right there.
Tests will commence on Monday and will run for 3 weeks at 51 Main Road, Bullaroo. The Health Service is urging people to book by visiting this website or phoning.
It was a special day for those who do an exceptional job.
The police officers' day is just, it's unimaginable because you just don't know what you're going to walk into.
The Lake Macquarie local area ceremony saw 25 awards presented. Andrew Gibson received a Humanitarian Overseas Service Medal for assisting New Zealand police in the aftermath of the Christchurch earthquake 4 years ago.
Not often that you can get the opportunity as a New South Wales police officer to travel overseas to help in a natural disaster like that.
And the experience was invaluable for the Charlestown detective.
Just seeing how New Zealand police worked in an environment where their own police station was falling down around them, they were still able to operate in a way that was able to keep the community safe still.
Lake Macquarie's local area commander also received a national medal but preferred to highlight the deeds of others.
It's really special to have these days where we can just focus on them, pat them on the back, because the community want to pat them on the back. The commanders want to pat them on the back for the work they do day in, day out.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Our contractor Remondis is offering free waste until the 30th of June, and this is really an opportunity for people to fix up their gardens after the April storms. We've had excellent participation from the local community with 400 tonnes of waste of mulch being collected and used around gardens in the city.
The Broncos have always endured a testing run during the Origin period, and tomorrow night the juggling act continues for Wayne Bennett's side. Jack Reed failed a fitness test this morning, while Sam Thaiday will be rested as part of a mid-season rotation.
You know, we're a bit vulnerable right now. We've had a good season and come off a great win right in the middle, well, at the end of Origin, but it's not over yet.
In round 11 at Hunter Stadium, the Knights led Brisbane 18-6 before capitulating in the second half. A week out from a bye, Bennett has identified the return clash as a danger game for his side.
They'll just have to lift themselves tomorrow night, and if they're feeling a bit tired and a bit sorry for themselves, they're just going to have to get over it and get the job done.
For the Knights, Jared Mullen put in another solid effort at training, but the club hasn't confirmed whether he'll play tomorrow.
Hopefully Mullen gets through all right and everything's fine. I guess that's up to him and the medical staff.
Robbie Rocco is certain to line up for his second game since back surgery.
Well, I was pretty close to playing reserve grade the week before. It just didn't work out with our training schedule and type of thing. So I was extremely confident with my injury. I wish I had a little bit more match fitness.
Akila Iwate is hoping to celebrate a special week with a win following the birth of his son Kingston on Monday.
The family's happy. I'm happy. I'm going to Brizzy today. A bit more sleep. A bit more sleep. So I'm excited about that.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We've got a few ideas of what we can do to make the plane go a bit faster. We've been testing them back here down at the airport at Belmont. So we'll get over to Budapest. We'll see if we can do a few little things to the plane. But overall, it's one of those things, if it's not broken, don't mess with it. We start under the Chain Bridge, which is a bridge that's only about 8 metres high over the Danube, doing 400 kilometres an hour under that bridge.
The impact of Australia's struggling shipbuilding industry was again felt in the Hunter this week, with news 160 jobs at Forjax will go next month. Prime Minister Tony Abbott addressed some of the industry's concerns during a speech in Canberra yesterday, promising to roll out construction of major surface warships, which would ensure jobs. But the AMWU is concerned it's simply talk.
We just want to make sure we're speaking out and making sure that it's not going to be just political rhetoric, and that we are actually going to get a commitment from him this time about a continuous build program.
Despite moves to bring forward a new $600 million patrol boat contract, which Forjax is tendering for, local union representative Ben Horan says the federal government needs to do more.
We needed a commitment 2 years ago, and we needed to have early commitments to secure the industry, because it takes so long before you actually start cutting steel.
We just can't see where it's going to come from, because the tenders are out for the patrol boats, but by the time they're awarded, the companies that have tendered for it will have fallen over.
Patterson MP Bob Baldwin maintains the coalition is committed to supporting the industry, saying it has brought forward $78 million for design work for the option of building future frigates in Australia, and it's working to fix the air warfare destroyer program. Meanwhile, Commonwealth representatives today inspected Forjax's new landing craft, which is being gifted to Tonga. The 30-metre vessel will be used to transport the country's defence services equipment and for disaster relief missions. Renee Feder, NBN News.
They are three things that help make a great fighter pilot.
Motivation, determination, a single-minded focus to be the best you can.
All that was on display at the Williamtown RAAF base this morning. Like a scene from the movie Top Gun, it was the best of the best.
The students on the course are some of our best fighter pilots, most experienced, and we put them through 5 months of intensive training to make them the tactical leaders and experts in their field.
Once this group graduates, they'll go on to teach the next generation of pilots. The exercise was called ACES North, the final leg of an extensive program that started at the top end of Australia in January.
Right now they're getting ready to have a big fight out over the coast to the east of us here, and then they'll come back and attack the airfield with a low arrival and land, so it should be pretty spectacular.
A combat instructor training course is the most challenging in a pilot's career, and although they take it seriously, they also love what they do.
When I was about 8, I wanted to be an astronaut. By the time I was 12, I worked out that you had to be a fighter pilot to get to be an astronaut. And once I was a fighter pilot, why would I want to be an astronaut? This is the best job ever. We're never satisfied with our performance. We're always trying to be better.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
We're formalising an operation over these couple of weekends in order to target those people, share our resources and, more importantly, share intelligence.
A storm unlike any other the region has experienced. With the force of a Category 2 cyclone, the aftermath of April's superstorm is still being felt in some areas 2 months on. 3 lives were lost in Dungog, homes were literally washed away, and 200,000 homes were without power.
This was an unprecedented event. People talk about the Pasha-Bolka storm, they talk about the 55 floods, and yet this one, people look back on it and they say, well, actually it was different, it was bigger in areas that those storms never affected.
The recovery effort was the focus of a forum today, organised by the Hunter Business Chamber. Representatives from Ausgrid, Telstra and local government spoke of the challenges in repairing infrastructure and cleaning up. The region's councils estimate it'll cost them in the order of $40 to $50 million, with the clean-up of green waste a large portion of the bill.
That alone is running in excess of $11 million and will take some months yet to deal with, so a huge task.
Brigadier Darren Norman says given the size of the disaster, the recovery effort is going well.
While there's still some areas that are still in need of help, as a whole, both communities, the Central Coast and the Hunter, are getting on with business.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
NHRU General Manager Andy Fairfall doesn't blame Lake Macquarie for pulling the pin. After a string of floggings, who could?
The player injuries and the fact some of their better players who were under contract were probably over being beaten by so much, and they wanted to see some other rugby.
The Roos will continue to field teams in 2nd and 3rd grade for the remainder of 2015 before taking a step back next season.
They've indicated that they probably want to go and rebuild in division, but we are going through a competition review and restructure at the moment, so what division looks like next year may be different to what it is this year.
The Colts competition is under threat, while changes to rules surrounding imported players will be looked at.
Having rules around what imports can come in and how many per club, and I think it's also probably looking at the depth of how many teams you hold per club, so that it can be filled by local talent as opposed to just filling with imports.
In other matches, Uni host Maitland, Singleton takes on the Bay, the Greens are on the road to Beaches, while the Two Blues could move into 2nd with a win over the Tars. In round 8 of the real NRL, Souths will be without Anthony Watts for the remainder of the season due to a knee injury. Central takes on Maitland, Macquarie faces Lakes, and ladder leader Cessnock plays Wests. In collegiate sport, size matters. Gordon Marshall's national championship ring, speckled with diamonds, is proof of that. A gift from the US university, where Marshall has become a precious commodity. It's easy to see why. Last season, the Hunter product scored the winning goal in the national championship game.
It's definitely an experience winning the national championship. I'd love to go to Rio, but yeah, definitely one of the most exciting moments of my career so far.
He began playing in the National League at age 14, but it wasn't until 2012 at the Youth World Championships in Perth where talent scouts noticed his ability.
Coach Wright came up to me and gave me his card and talked to me a little bit about the college system and what it was like to go to school there. And from there, it really just came down to what was best for me at the time.
The centre forward has since flourished at UCLA's well-renowned water polo program. This weekend, the 21-year-old will head to Korea for the World University Games, a step along the road to gaining selection in the Australian team for this year's World Champs in Russia.
We have a training camp a little later in the year, and trying to put my best foot forward there to make the team, yeah.
Rio is the ultimate goal, and the economics major is pulling out all stops to get there. In 2016, water polo will be his #1 priority.
It's been my dream ever since I've been a young kid to always represent Australia and to go to an Olympics. And yeah, hopefully in a little bit of time that dream can come true.
It was a case of fine-tuning water rescues for two vital organisations.
Their training is pretty full on, and we got to experience what it's like to have a chopper hanging over you.
This week, Marine Rescue and the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service united on Lake Macquarie to practice vital life-saving skills.
From our point of view, if we're out at sea or whatever and we have to go to a vessel where there's somebody that's ill or whatever, and we need assistance of a paramedic. It'd be good to have the capability to be able for them to come out, drop a paramedic on board.
The rescue complements a 3-day course off Newcastle beaches, which is designed to ensure paramedics are first on the scene. With work expected to start on the Westpac Rescue Helicopter Service's new operational base at Lake Macquarie Airport later this year, the relationship is only expected to strengthen even more over time.
But this is the first practical training we've been able to do with them, and when they move out here, I'm sure we'll be doing more. They've already indicated that they're happy with what we do and they're happy to provide to come out with us.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
It's a scenario underground miners hope will never happen, but one they must be prepared for. The roof has collapsed and a fellow worker has died after becoming trapped under the rubble. After supporting the unstable roof, the rescue team is able to retrieve his body. It's just one of several scenarios tested in the mines rescue competition.
They're here to hone up their skills in a competition scenario to be better prepared for a real emergency should one occur.
56 workers from mines across Newcastle and the Hunter took part, the competition forcing them to use multiple pieces of equipment and coordinate with other agencies. All of the emergency situations made as realistic as possible.
When they turn up, there's no guarantee that they will be with their teammates that they train with every day of the year.
But it wasn't just about exercising their specialised skills. Basic first aid, as well as how they respond to emotional family members, was also tested.
Our mines rescue brigades don't just get underground expertise, we train them to be able to protect their workmates as well as their family and other people outside the industry.
Renee Feder, NBN News.
There's almost 1,000 men's sheds in Australia, but today a shed with a difference was unveiled in Waratah.
This is really focusing on multiculturalism and with people from all aspects of the community coming in, but focusing really on the men coming in from all areas of the world and learning new trades and sharing their experiences.
The organisation's #1 patron on hand to do the official honours. The Governor-General knowing just how important a haven like this can be to a man's well-being.
People don't sort of crack hardy and say, I don't need help when they really do. And this is a benign way to do something useful with your hands and to unburden your spirit.
The shed has plenty of knickknacks to suit all members, including a boat named in the honour of Lady Cosgrove. After working as an interpreter for the Australian Defence Force in Afghanistan, Rajab Ali wants to change careers, and this shed will be his vehicle to do that.
Main interest is to work on automotive over here, to practice on that, to learn and to make a future. We can come here to make friends here and we learn a lot of stuff here. It's a very important place for community.
And Rajab's not the only one keen to take part.
Can we see you back to do a bit of work with the boys?
Look, as Governor-General, I'd be anxious to come back to Newcastle, to the Hunter, anytime I'm asked.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
Beau Scott had scans today and will know his origin fate tomorrow. This is the knock that caused the damage, while teammate Tarek Sims is the man who could potentially take his place. Robbie Rocco's season is all but over.
It felt bad, but not terrible, and I ran around for a bit, and then I knew I'd done something, and then I tried to clench my fist and felt it clunk, and I went, oh, yeah, I've done something here.
Rick Stone's recruitment window is rapidly closing.
We're exploring a couple of options as well to see if there's anything that might sort of happen for us before the 30th of June.
Corey Oates opened the scoring last night before some lazy market offence saw Andrew McCulloch stroll through. Lachlan Maranta pushed the lead out even further when he went through untouched. The Knights appeared gone when Anthony Milford crossed for the fourth. Tries to Gagai and Uarte before the break gave the Knights hope. The momentum shifting when Danny Levi crossed for his first try in the top grade, but a mistake in the very next set undid all that.
Like any team with the momentum, you need to kick it up another level, and we made a mistake that set, and I think that was another turning point in the game where it went downhill again.
Corbin Sims brought the Knights to within 4. But injuries and inexperience would eventually buck the visitors.
I think the effort today was really big, considering we lost our 2 back rows probably in the first 20 minutes, which didn't make things easy.
A cheap shot from their old coach, rubbing salt into the wounds.
Feel from it all? Well, I'm pleased I'm not there.
Last year's premiers were looking to build some momentum, and country prop Andrew Tuala got the ball rolling. A scuffle on the touchline left the visitors short, but Billy Coffey took advantage, scoring his first try in the top grade for 2015. Mark Sherwood further extended the lead with a penalty before a quick tap from Andrew Tuala saw him bag his second. Wanderers continue to flex their muscles after the break. A well-constructed rolling maul saw Colin Hovell fall over the line. Sherwood's right boot put the lead beyond 30. It took 54 minutes for the Waratahs to get on the board, their forwards doing the damage, with Josh Afoa eventually crashing over. But Andrew Tuala stamped his dominance on the match. The front rower displaying speed beyond his weight category to touchdown from 75 metres out. The Tars ran in 2 late tries, but the damage was done.
We also responded to our rescue unit from Cooks Hill here, and they stood by in case there was any issues, but firefighters worked well under arduous conditions to extinguish the flames.
Conditions were perfect for dolphin spotting at Port Stephens today.
Nice smooth waters, very little wind and nice bright sunny days. I was very happy with our sightings, and I think by the end of the day we'll probably have around 60 or 70 at least good sightings that'll be reported.
9 boats took to the water for the census, while 40 volunteers were positioned at points along the foreshore, all gathering vital information for organisers.
We can learn more about their movements within the bay, about their social relationships and social structures of the different pod groups that we see.
At last count, 90 dolphins call the bay home, while another 80 visit each year. For most of us, telling the mammals apart is near impossible, but marine experts are able to recognise the locals.
We use the dorsal fin to differentiate between all the individuals. They all have different nicks, different cuts, different scarring down that back edge. So that's what we're looking at today when we're trying to ID our dolphins.
For this mother and son, it was a special day out on the water.
He always asking dolphins and also the whales, and I think it's very good opportunity to see them. And also we love to help them, right?
Yeah, we do.
Meredith Gibbs, NBN News. Back and bigger than ever, stretching around the bend at the Newcastle Jockey Club, 11,000 people ready to take part in the region's third colour run.
This is the biggest fun run that's ever happened in Newcastle, so we're just thrilled to be here.
Whether it was running solo or strolling with family and friends, the event catered to all ages. The white shirts soon took on a new look though, as entrants made their way through various paint stations along the 5-kilometre course.
There's no timing or no serious aspect. It's all about having fun, and the colour just brings out your inner child and makes everyone smile and have a good time.
By the finish line, there was a complete paint war. Even security guards didn't escape unscathed, but that didn't seem to faze anyone.
Lots of energy, lots of different colour, and you get to do it with your family. Awesome.
Just the atmosphere, like everyone's just having fun. It doesn't matter if you're really fast, really slow, you can just go your own pace.
It was so much fun. Yeah. There's so much colour, it's awesome.
Organisers say the event will return next year. Renee Feder, NBN News.
She's a trailblazer for women in her field.
Jan McMahon is an absolute pioneer, 41 years as a detective, joined in 1969, just an amazing lady.
Nobody ever used to think I was a policewoman. Some of the hoodlums on the street used to say, "You look like my mother."
The 68-year-old from Lake Macquarie left the force 4 years ago. In the early days, just being accepted by her peers was as tough a job as keeping law and order on the streets.
Oh, you'd be left out sort of to go and get the tea and coffee or look after, if you went somewhere to lock someone up and they had children, you'd be looking after the children while the more exciting stuff was going on.
Jan worked at King's Cross in the 90s, at a time when gangland turf wars raged and looking over your shoulder on the way home was the norm.
You used to make sure you didn't go home the same way twice, and you were quite aware of where you were, your surroundings.
That period portrayed in the Underbelly series, The Golden Mile.
Originally I was on a strike force to investigate organised crime in King's Cross, and we were given, there was 3 groups of us and we were given a target each. My target was Danny Karam and his boys. And then within a month or so, Danny was murdered by his troops, so the whole focus of the strike force changed.
From homicide to armed robbery, she dealt with almost every type of crime.
Like some of the people deal just with child sex offences, and that would be awful. I couldn't, I have dealt with them individually, but I couldn't deal with that all the time.
The Special Commission of Inquiry, chaired by Margaret Caneen, looked into how clergy from the Maitland-Newcastle Diocese handled complaints of sexual abuse by priests Dennis McAlinden and James Fletcher.
One female officer who spent a good part of her career investigating child sex abuse is Charlestown detective Christy Faber. She led Strike Force Georgiana, an investigation into crimes against children in the Hunter.
We started full-time in 2008 and there was only a number of investigations that we were doing at the time and a number of persons of interest, but obviously over the last 8 years it's grown to an enormous capacity. But it opens your eyes to what human people are capable of, definitely. That it's such a serious crime, and it is a crime that's akin to murder.
Christy Faber joined the ranks in 1992 and has won many awards since. This week she picked up a service medal for her work on Strike Force Adrian, an investigation into the murder of Newcastle man Jay Riley in 2009. 3 people were convicted.
You learn to probably be more hardened over the years, and I think one of the best things is when you go to court and you get that result at court, and you do that for your victims of crime, and that's very rewarding for police officers.
Michael Kane, NBN News.
The Rosellas suffered a setback before kick-off with Ryan Lamb ruled out, but Wests quickly moved on. Fellow winger Michael Hendry latched onto a Jade Porter kick to put the home side in front. The Rosellas looked to the air again a few minutes later. Joel Brown's kick eventually ended up with Jermaine Ale. Cessnock's first decent chance saw Jared Edwards make a break from inside his own half. He busted through plenty of tackle attempts before handing off to Geordie Connolly, but two defenders and the post stopped the fullback from scoring. Wests made the visitors pay at the other end, keeping the ball alive before Porter dived over to make it 18-0. Former Wests premiership-winning coach Craig Miller had plenty to talk about with his new side at half-time, and Cessnock responded after the break. A penalty to the Rosellas made it 20-0, but a try to Joe Woodbury got the Goannas back in the game. When back rower Reid Hugo scored, the margin was down to 10 points with 10 minutes left. Cessnock managed to add another try in the 77th minute, but the Goannas had left their run too late. Both sides scored plenty of goals in FFA Cup games last weekend, but it took almost 10 minutes and a controversial penalty call against the Magic's Josh Pittington today to create the first genuine chance for the Eagles. Unfortunately for Edgeworth, Bren Hamill couldn't get past Nathan Archbold. Archbold again denied the Eagles from a corner, but Keanu Moore calmly slotted home the follow-up. Broadmeadow's goal also came from a corner. Following a scramble at the back post, the Magic men were level. Jim Fogarty was determined to ensure he wouldn't be beaten again, while Ben Higgins copped the brunt of a full-blooded clearance. But just before the break, Fogarty suffered what looked like a serious injury and had to be replaced by veteran keeper Ben Smith. In the second half, Smith proved his worth in goal, keeping the likes of Scott Pettit, Peter Haynes and Luke Vigili at bay. At the other end, Archbold denied Keanu Moore from adding a second. Higgins recovered from his knock to make some vital stops for Broadmeadow, twice denying Brenton Olzema. The Magic had a great chance to hit the front, but Cale Bradbury couldn't convert. Moore would eventually have a hand in the winner, setting up Aaron McLaughlin, who gave Edgeworth the 3 points.
Tough getting up each morning and getting the energy going. I didn't start well yesterday, but I played well for the rest of my round and then managed to start a bit better today and could finish it off, so it was nice.